She twirled barefoot in the marble hallway, unaware he was watching, and when he saw his paralyzed son smiling for the first time in years, the billionaire realized everything he thought he knew was wrong. The mansion sat on the cliffside, like a monument to solitude. Cold marble floors, glass walls reflecting nothing but grey skies. To the world, Richard Caldwell was a titan, real estate mogul, billionaire, widower. But behind those closed doors, he was something else entirely, a ghost roaming his own house. Each morning started the same. Black coffee, no sugar, stock market news blaring from the kitchen TV, silent nods to the staff. He didn't learn their names, not anymore. Not since her, not since the accident. His son, Noah, had once been a comet, fast, brilliant, untouchable, captain of the rowing team at Harvard, laughed too loudly, danced like no one was watching, kissed girls like he meant it. But now Noah lived in a custom wheelchair with a steel brace at his spine and silence in his throat. It had been 3 years since the crash. 3 years since that rain-slicked road swallowed his laughter whole. Noah never left his room on the 3rd floor, not unless forced. Physical therapy was a fight. Meals were left at the door. He didn't speak, didn't look anyone in the eye. Even Richard, his own father, hadn't heard a word from him in over a year. But downstairs in the servants' quarters, life was different. Zora hummed while she worked, soft old-school soul tunes that curled through the halls like incense. She'd only been there 6 weeks, hired through an agency to replace a maid who quit without notice. Her skin was deep mahogany, her curls always tucked under a silk scarf, and her smile, when she let it out, could break through any storm. To the staff, she was sunshine. To Richard, she was invisible. But to Noah, she was something else entirely. Zora had noticed, of course, the way he watched her reflection in the glass when she dusted the library, the way his jaw twitched, barely, when she sang quietly to herself while cleaning his floor. She said nothing, but she felt it. She'd seen sadness before. She'd lived it. And Noah's sadness was loud, even in silence. One morning, after polishing the silver and fluffing pillows that no one sat on, she found herself in the East Wing, Noah's wing. She carried a tray with folded laundry, humming softly as she walked. Through the slightly cracked door, she saw him, staring out the window, not moving, as always. But she noticed something new, a photo on the nightstand, him, before, standing tall, a medal around his neck, his arms around 2 laughing friends. She hesitated. Then softly, like it was just for her, she began to sing. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Noah didn't flinch, but he didn't wheel away either. That was something. The next day she did it again. This time she danced just a little, hips swaying, eyes closed, a slow rhythm in the silence. Noah blinked, then looked down, as if afraid to want it. By the end of the week, she wasn't just cleaning his room. She was bringing music, a speaker tucked into her apron, a playlist of Motown and Marvin Gaye. She never asked him to join. She just danced, playful, free, like the air in the mansion wasn't choking, like someone still believed joy belonged here. And one afternoon, just after lunch, she turned to find him watching, really watching. His lips twitched, just once, but it was enough to make her breath catch. Richard, frozen, coffee in hand, watching the maid, spinning barefoot in the same corridor his wife used to walk through, watching his son smile. The tray hit the ground. A glass shattered. Zora gasped, spinning around, her eyes locking with the man who signed her checks. Silence. No one moved, no one breathed, and nothing would ever be the same. Zora stood motionless, one foot still half raised in her dance. Her breath caught halfway between her throat and her chest. The music still played softly from her apron, a mellow rhythm that now sounded far too loud in the dead hallway. Noah's smile had disappeared the moment his father entered. Richard's eyes locked on her like twin spotlights, cold, calculating, disbelieving. Then, down to his son. For a long, unbearable second, no one spoke. Finally, Richard stepped forward, his voice sharp, clipped. "What exactly is going on here?" Zora straightened, smoothing her apron. I was just cleaning, sir, and playing music to keep the mood light." She didn't add that she did it every day, that she had brought laughter into this hallway, into his son's room, where no light had existed for years. Noah looked away, suddenly distant again, like a turtle retreating into its shell. Richard's eyes narrowed. "You were dancing." His tone made it sound like a crime. Zora nodded once. Calm, unapologetic. "Yes, sir." A beat passed. He turned to Noah. "And you let her?" Zora's heart dropped, but then something happened she didn't expect. Noah's hand moved, barely, a small, deliberate gesture. His fingers tapped twice on the armrest of his wheelchair. Zora had been around him long enough to know. That meant, yes. Richard blinked, as if he hadn't understood what he'd just seen. His son had responded. "Noah," he said quietly now. You liked it." No reaction. But Noah didn't wheel away either. Zora could feel the shift in the room like a breeze through a closed window. Richard took a slow step back. "You're dismissed for today," he told Zora, his voice softer now. "We'll talk tomorrow." She hesitated, glancing back at Noah. His eyes were fixed on the window again. But his lips, soft, still, held a hint of that vanishing smile. She gave a small nod and walked away, each step echoing louder than it should have. Down in the kitchen, the housekeeper, Marina, looked up from the sink. "What happened? You look like you saw a ghost." Zora leaned on the counter, exhaling deeply. "I think I just saw a heartbreak open. Or maybe two." That night, Richard didn't eat. He sat in the den, staring at an old photograph on the wall. His wife, Camille, was mid-laugh, hair wild, twirling barefoot in that same hallway. Noah was 5, spinning beside her. Joy had once lived here. Had he been the one to kill it? The maid's face haunted him. Not because she'd danced, but because of what it had done to Noah. The first flicker of light he'd seen in his boy's eyes since the accident. And it hadn't come from therapy, or private nurses, or the specialist flown in from Zurich. It had come from a girl with music in her pocket and bare feet. Upstairs, Noah stared at the speaker Zora had left on his windowsill. Music still played, soft and distant. "I found joy in the strangest place." And for the first time in 3 years, he didn't hate the sound. Can something as simple as a song really change a broken heart? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. The next morning, the music was gone. Zora entered the mansion quietly. No soul playlist in her apron, no dance in her steps. She cleaned the silver like it mattered, polished the banister until she could see her own uneasy face staring back. Noah's hallway felt colder now. She didn't play music. She didn't even hum. She knocked gently. No response. She left the laundry and walked away. Richard sat at his desk, staring at his inbox, fingers frozen above the keyboard. Meetings, investors, contracts. But all he could think about was his son's face, that flicker of a smile, so rare it looked out of place. He should have said something, to his son, to the girl, to anyone. Instead, he had shut down, like always. He buzzed the intercom. "Tell the maid to meet me in the library, 10 minutes. Zora entered with careful hands, wiping invisible dust from her apron as she stood near the bookcase. Richard didn't look up from his scotch glass. "You've been here how long?" 7 weeks yesterday, sir." He took a slow sip, then finally looked at her. "What you did yesterday, that wasn't in your job description." "No, sir." "You know that kind of familiarity with a client's family is frowned upon in this house." Zora inhaled slowly, hands clenched behind her back. "If I overstepped, I'm sorry. I didn't mean disrespect. I only meant to bring him a little joy." Richard didn't respond right away. "Joy," he repeated, like it was a foreign word. Then quietly, "Noah hasn't smiled in years." His voice cracked just slightly on years. Zora softened. I know. He never even smiles for me. Silence stretched between them. Finally, he waved her off. You may go, but keep the music to yourself from now on. She opened her mouth to speak, but thought better of it. Yes, sir. And she left. Upstairs, Noah watched the hallway like a hawk. He waited for her shadow, her music, her laugh, but none came. By noon, he wheeled himself to the window. No speaker, no playlist, just silence. Again, and this time, it hurt. Downstairs, Zora scrubbed a counter that was already clean. Marina leaned on the sink beside her. You're quieter than usual. Zora hesitated. I made him smile. Noah? Zora nodded. And now I'm being asked not to do it again. Marina clicked her tongue. That family is a cage of ghosts. You touch something they're too scared to feel. Zora didn't answer, but her jaw set firm. That night, Richard stood outside Noah's door. For almost 5 full minutes. He raised his hand to knock, but didn't. Instead, he walked away, footsteps echoing down the hallway like regret. A thunderstorm rolled in by noon, loud, violent, unrelenting. Rain whipped against the glass walls of the estate like an old wound reopened. Marina's voice echoed from the stairwell. Generators acting up, elevators down. Zora had just finished restocking the upstairs linen closet when she realized she was stuck on the 3rd floor. With him. Noah's door creaked open slightly. His eyes met hers across the hall. Not cold, just waiting. She considered walking downstairs, taking the back stairs, avoiding it all. But instead, she took a breath, squared her shoulders, and walked into his room. Noah didn't speak. He never did. But his eyes tracked her the whole time as she picked up the books from the floor, straightened the dresser, fluffed the pillows she knew he'd never use. Rain pounded against the windows. The room was dim, the kind of gray that swallowed time. I'm not supposed to play music anymore, she said, not looking at him. Your father said it's unprofessional. Noah didn't move. But I left my earbuds in my apron, and he didn't say anything about that. She pulled one out and held it up. Want to hear something? His head tilted. The smallest nod. She crossed the room and gently placed one bud in his ear, the other in hers. A soft vinyl crackle started, followed by the rich velvety voice of Sam Cooke. Darling, you send me. She didn't dance. Not this time. She just sat beside him on the window bench, close enough to feel the warmth of his shoulder. They watched the rain. 2 people, not talking but not alone. 20 minutes passed like a dream. When the track looped, Zora glanced sideways. Noah's eyes were closed, but his fingers were tapping lightly against his lap. A beat, a rhythm. She smiled. I knew you had it in you. Noah opened his eyes, and for the first time, they held something sharp. He whispered, You remind me of her. Zora froze. The voice was gravel, rough from disuse, but real. Human, broken, beautiful. Your mother? She asked softly. He nodded. She used to sing. In the kitchen. Dance barefoot. Everyone thought she was crazy. His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. She made this house feel like not a prison. Zora's throat tightened. She laid a hand over his. That's a gift, you know. Making people feel something again. They sat like that until the rain slowed and the power blinked back to life. Later that night in his office, Richard stared at the camera feeds. One showed Noah's room, the 2 of them, side by side, listening to something he couldn't hear. He didn't know whether to feel jealous, grateful, or ashamed. At this point, what do you think he should do? Follow his pride or follow his heart? Drop your prediction in the comments. It's about to get complicated. Zora didn't come in the next morning. The other staff noticed. Marina raised an eyebrow. She's never missed a shift. Richard noticed too. Her laughter didn't echo down the halls. There was no hum of soul music near the baseboards, no whispered lyrics trailing behind her broom. Noah noticed most of all. By mid-afternoon, Richard found himself at the Maid's storage locker. It was unlocked. Inside, he found her name badge, a half-eaten granola bar, and a small leather-bound notebook. He knew he shouldn't open it. He opened it anyway. The first pages were lists, grocery items, cleaning checklists, staff notes. But toward the back, handwritten letters, unsent, raw. Dear Jordan, today I saw a boy in a wheelchair try not to cry when I danced past his room. I didn't say anything, just left the speaker playing. I think he needs music more than I do. Dear Jordan, I finally made him smile. You would have loved it. He reminds me of you sometimes. So still, so quiet, so broken. Dear Jordan, I hope wherever you are, you're dancing again. I'm still trying to forgive myself for not being able to save you. Richard's heart stopped. Who was Jordan? And why did that name sound familiar? That night, when Zora finally returned, eyes heavy, scarf missing, expression guarded, Richard was waiting in the library. She froze when she saw the notebook in his hand. You went through my things. You didn't show up. I was concerned. So you read my journal? I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. The room pulsed with tension. Zora stepped forward, her voice low but fierce. Jordan was my little brother. He was 10 when he got caught in a drive-by. Wrong place, wrong time. I was 15. I told him to go to the store that day. I said I was too tired. She took a deep breath, blinking back the sting. He died because I was tired. Silence. Richard finally sat down. I lost my wife in a car crash 3 years ago. Same day my son was paralyzed. Zora didn't move. I was late to dinner. Cancelled last minute. She went to pick up Noah from rowing practice. I should have been driving. Their eyes met. Pain for pain. Regret for regret. Richard looked down at the notebook again. Your letters, they're beautiful. They weren't for you. He nodded. But they reached me anyway. Upstairs, Noah sat alone with his headphones in. A low, haunting jazz tune played on repeat. Not upbeat, not soulful, just honest. He stared at the ceiling and whispered to no one, "Don't leave." 2 days passed with barely a word exchanged, but on the third, Zora found a note tucked under her mop bucket, in neat, careful handwriting. If you bring the music, I'll bring the window seat. N. Her heart fluttered. By late afternoon, the storm clouds had passed and sunlight spilled through the east wing windows like warm honey. Zora walked into Noah's room with a speaker tucked under her arm and 2 fresh mugs of cocoa. I'm off duty, she said, teasing. So technically I'm just visiting. Noah gave her that same half smile, the one that now came easier. Technically, he said quietly, you're late. Her eyes widened. Oh, someone's talking again now? He shrugged, mock casual. Some people bring better playlists than therapists. Zora laughed, a deep belly laugh that surprised them both. Well, she said, plopping down beside him on the window bench. Let's see if today's hits the mark. She pressed play. Let's Stay Together by Al Green filled the room. Noah closed his eyes, swaying his head ever so slightly. Zora let the music run, sipping her cocoa in silence, watching the way the light danced over his face. You always this quiet? She asked gently. Not before, he murmured. What changed? A long pause. Everything. She nodded, respecting the weight of that single word. Then softly, when Jordan died, I stopped laughing. Like, really laughing. It felt wrong. Like I had to earn joy again. Noah looked at her, eyes clearer now. Did you? Still trying. He smiled, not wide, but genuine. You're close. They talked for over an hour, about music, about childhood, about the way grief distorts time. Zora told him about dancing in church basements, barefoot and free, before the world turned cold. Noah told her about the lake house he used to visit with his mom, how she'd sneak ice cream before dinner and call it soul medicine. They didn't touch, but the closeness between them pulsed like electricity. That evening, Richard watched from the library balcony. Noah was laughing. actually laughing. Zora leaned back, hands behind her head, teasing him about his old rowing photos on the dresser. "You had abs? You?" "Excuse you," Noah fired back. "I was a god back then." Richard didn't interrupt. He just listened and smiled. Before leaving that night, Zora stood in the doorway. "Same time tomorrow?" Noah nodded. "Bring something old school. Stevie, maybe." "Ooh, taste." She turned to go. "Zora?" he called softly. She paused. "Yeah? Thank you for not treating me like I'm broken." Her eyes glistened. "You're not. You're just..." Paused. And then she was gone. It happened on a Tuesday. Zora arrived early, holding a vinyl record in one hand and a basket of muffins in the other. But something felt off. The air in the mansion was tense. The staff avoided her eyes. Marina barely offered a greeting. When she reached Noah's hallway, she stopped cold. His door was closed. Locked. Downstairs, Richard sat with his lawyer in the study, voice low but firm. "I don't want her terminated, just moved. Somewhere else in the house. No more one-on-one time with Noah." The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Any reason?" Richard stared out the window. "He's getting too attached, and I don't trust how complicated it's becoming." The lawyer hesitated. "Sir, are you sure this isn't about you?" Zora waited an hour outside Noah's door, then two. When Marina finally came up with the vacuum cart, Zora turned, arms crossed. "Why is his door locked?" Marina sighed. "Orders from the top. Mr. Caldwell said it's for his safety." "His safety from me?" No answer. Zora's voice dropped. "Tell him if he has something to say to me, he can say it to my face." Later that night, she stormed into Richard's office, slamming the vinyl onto his desk. "You really think I'm a threat? After everything I've done?" Richard didn't look up from his screen. "You got too close." "To what? A boy who hasn't smiled in 3 years? A father who's too afraid to feel?" He stood slowly. "This is my house. My son. I won't apologize for protecting him." "No," she snapped. "You're not protecting him. You're isolating him. Again." Silence thundered between them. "I read your journal, Zora. I know how much pain you carry. But this, what you're doing with Noah," he hesitated, "isn't healthy. For either of you." Her voice broke. "He's not just your son, Richard. He's a person who finally feels alive again. You want to take that from him?" "I'm trying to save him." "No, you're trying to control him, because you couldn't control what happened to your wife." The slap of her words left the room echoing. Richard turned away, his jaw tight. "You're dismissed for the week. Take the time, think it over." Zora didn't speak. She just left the record on his desk, the one she and Noah were supposed to play together that afternoon, and walked out of the room and out of the house. Upstairs, Noah watched the rain fall again. No music, no warmth, no Zora, only silence. He wheeled himself back from the window, turned off the light, and let the darkness wrap around him like a blanket of old grief. Zora didn't come back. Not the next day, not the day after. She stayed in her tiny apartment above the corner laundromat, wrapped in an oversized hoodie, headphones on, heart aching. Her phone buzzed once. Unknown number. She didn't answer. She wanted to. God, she wanted to. But something in her said, "Maybe you were wrong to care." The notebook sat open on the table. Letter Nutter 38, unsent. "Dear Jordan, I thought I'd finally found a place where I mattered. I thought I'd helped someone, but maybe I just made things worse again." She didn't cry, but her hands trembled as she turned the page. Richard didn't sleep. The house was too quiet again. Noah had shut down, not violently, not dramatically, just absent, like the flicker had died out again. Richard watched old footage from the security cameras. Zora spinning in the hallway, Noah laughing, Zora singing while folding sheets, barely aware she was being watched. His wife had done that too, danced like no one was looking, loved like no one could take it from her. He realized with a cold knot in his chest he was doing the same thing to Noah that life had done to him. He was stealing the light. Again. On the third day, Richard knocked on Noah's door. No answer. He stepped in anyway. The room was dim, speaker unplugged, curtains drawn. "Noah," he said softly. "Nothing. I know I've made mistakes. I was scared of losing you, of letting someone close again." Still silence. Then, "You already did." Richard's breath caught. Noah turned slightly, voice quiet but sharp. "You let her go, when she was the first thing that made me feel anything again. I was trying to protect you." "From what? Feeling human?" That line hit like a punch to the chest. Richard stepped closer. "I want to fix it." Noah's gaze didn't soften. "Then stop talking to me and go find her." Across town, Zora stood outside the youth center where Jordan used to volunteer. She hadn't been there in years. Inside, a kid no older than Noah once was banged out a messy drumbeat on an upside-down trash can. She smiled, tears at the corners of her eyes. Her phone rang again, she answered. "Zora?" A pause. "Mr. Caldwell." "Richard?" Another pause. "Please, I need you to come back." "Why now?" "Because I was wrong, and because my son is in love with you." Zora's breath caught. "He's never said that." "He doesn't have to. I see it. I feel it. And if I don't do something about it, I'll lose you both." A beat. "Can you forgive me?" Zora closed her eyes. Her brother's voice echoed in her mind. "Keep dancing, Zoe, even when they don't see you." She opened her eyes and whispered, "I'm not coming back. For you." Zora walked through the front gates just as the morning sun kissed the edge of the Caldwell estate. No apron, no scarf, just her, steady, whole, and finally, seen. Richard met her at the door, not with his usual stern posture, but with quiet humility. "Thank you for coming." She gave him a nod. "I'm here for Noah." He stepped aside. "I know." She paused before walking in. "You said something on the phone about love." "I was talking about him," Richard said softly. "But I think I was also talking about myself. I loved my wife so much. I forgot how to let anyone else in when she left. And now? Now I'm learning." She didn't knock. She just opened the door. Noah sat by the window, same as always, except this time he turned the second he heard her footsteps. No hesitation, no fear, just a quiet, relieved smile. "Hey," he said, voice raw but clear. "Hey, yourself." She crossed the room, pulled the same vinyl record from her tote bag, the one she'd left behind. Noah's eyes lit up. "You brought it." "Damn right I did." She placed it on the player. The soft crackle of vinyl filled the silence. Then, music. "Let's stay together." Al Green Zora reached out a hand. "May I have this dance?" Noah looked at his legs, then back up at her. "You know I can't." "That's not what I asked." She took his hand and placed it on her waist, his other hand in hers, and slowly, carefully, she moved. A gentle sway. Barely there, just enough for the moment to stretch, to soften, to live. And Noah laughed. Not just a chuckle, a real bright from the chest kind of laugh. Zora joined him, tears slipping from her eyes as they danced in place. Him in his chair, her leading gently. Outside the door, Richard watched silently. Then, for the first time in 3 years, he walked in. "Mind if I cut in?" Zora stepped back, letting him kneel beside his son. Noah looked stunned. "You want to?" "I should have wanted to a long time ago." They hugged, no fanfare, just arms around each other, father and son. Zora turned away, wiping her cheek. A few months later, the Caldwell mansion was louder, laughter, music, the scent of fresh-baked muffins. Zora still worked there, but not as a maid. Richard offered her a new position, creative wellness director at the foundation his wife had started. She'd be overseeing therapy through art, music, and movement for kids with disabilities. She said yes. Noah went with her every week, sometimes just to watch. Other times he played music from his playlist. Once she caught him singing, and every Thursday, like clockwork, they danced. Maybe not with steps, but with something deeper: movement, emotion, joy, love. Do you believe true love, the healing kind, can grow in the unlikeliest places? Tell us in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear.